how should we be viewing the Oregon Ducks? Across the college football landscape, we all saw week one and what happened to the Ducks, went to Atlanta, Georgia did what they did, but that's kind of the last thing that a lot of the casual college football fans saw. Fast forward the tape, get a top 10 win at home in Autzen Stadium against UCLA, and I think it's time to change this conversation around how we view the Ducks. Let's start with the future of the program because, 2022 is great. We'll get to that in a second, but Dan Lanning came to build a program, not just a winning season. This thing has staying power, and I think that's the first thing I want to say. The bones of this program are really good. Not just with Dan Lanning, but also Kenny Dillingham as your offensive coordinator. Seems like you got something working there. Let's talk about recruiting. Oregon, as of right now, has the number 10 class in the On3 consensus team recruiting rankings. Best in the Pac-12, which is saying a lot for who they're going to be playing against. On top of that, I'm fascinated with how they're building that 2023 class right now. Because of those 22 commits, 11 of them are either on the defensive or offensive line. To put that in some context, Georgia, 22 commits, 7 of those guys are linemen. Alabama, 23 commits, 9 of those guys are linemen. So Oregon is very, very heavily prioritizing big human beings that can move other big human beings against their will to come play on their football team. And I understand that with Georgia and Bama, there's some depth that plays into that. Don't get it twisted. I get it. But the fact of the matter remains, Oregon is building their program to play tough football, to play bully ball. That's what they're going to be doing in Eugene. And think back to what you know about the Ducks, whether it's the Mark Helfrich era or it's Chip Kelly, whoever's playing quarterback, Mariota, Darren Thomas, doesn't matter. Think about those teams. What were the adjectives that you would associate with those programs? Quick, fast, high scoring, finesse. In a good way, right? It was a good way, but every single year, there was always the question, what happens when they play one of those tough football teams? Like those blue collar, those Stanford teams back in the day, when they ran into Auburn in the national championship. Can they hold up? That was always the question, right? That's not the question anymore. Oregon is now the aggressor. Oregon went from being the nail to the hammer with Dan Lanning and the way he's building this program forward. And so in terms of what they have to look forward to, it's the same brand of football. That's going to travel. We said it in previous videos. This kind of football Oregon's playing, it can go coast to coast. And they're getting the personnel to be able to go coast to coast, to play whoever, wherever, whenever. That's the kind of program that Dan Lanning is working to build. You talk about Bo Nix being the quarterback this year. That's great. Well, guess who they have coming? Guess who they have committed in the boat? Dante Moore. On3 consensus 5-star quarterback. I think you're pretty excited about what the future holds with him. And having the quarterback position taken care of, as you're seeing this year, is one of the most crucial variables. So the future is bright in Eugene. Let's just say that. But for 2022, I think you got to be really excited. You got to be extremely encouraged by the way that to this point, Oregon has surpassed a lot of the national types expectations. The blue checkmark guys, all those guys, they've surpassed a lot of their expectations. Because before the year, the over-under win total on Oregon, 8.5 wins. I think they're on pace to surpass that, needless to say. So look at what they have the rest of the way. They go to Cal, go to Colorado, then you get Washington at home, and you get Utah, November 19th in Autzen Stadium. And that's going to be a great litmus test for the Ducks. Because Utah is, in my mind at least, what Oregon is going to be in the future. Maybe it's what they are this year in terms of how tough they play, but you get what I'm saying here. They play a similar brand of football. Tough, experienced. That's kind of who they both want to be. And so I think we get a great test for Oregon. I think Oregon's going to be favored in that game. I really do. I think Oregon, we're not predicting it right now, but I would be leaning today that Oregon would win that game, because of what they've done so far and what they've put on tape and how well Bo Nix is playing. Then you go to Oregon State, and you probably, assuming everything shakes out the way that we, are looking at it, looking in Vegas right now, they're the favorite. Then you play in the Pac-12 title game. And my personal feel on that is they would play a USC team. And I would venture to say as well, Dan Lanning and company, they would love to play that USC team. For a lot of reasons that we'll talk about another time, but basically, USC gotten a lot of shine. Oregon feels like they're just as good. I think they'd love to prove it in that kind of game. We'll leave it at that. But looking at 2022 in itself, this was supposed to be a stability year. 2022 was supposed to be a stable out the program kind of year for Dan Lanning. Get our bearings, start recruiting, rented a quarterback in Bo Nix, see if we can do some good things there. Folks, this stability year is now turning into a springboard kind of year. Like, this could be the match that sets the whole powder keg on fire to just explode in the coming years. Because you keep winning, guess what? Recruits see that, and they say, I want to go play tough football. I want to go compete nationally. I want to go play for big-time kind of bowl games and even potentially have a chance to make the college football playoff. I can do that at Oregon. Sign me up. I think that's kind of the narrative that's starting to be built even more in Eugene. So was going to be a stability year. Telling you what, 2022 for Dan Lanning and company, looking a lot like a springboard kind of year. So here's what I think the Ducks fans are thinking right now. You're sitting here, one loss in a lot of ways. I mean, it feels like at least controlling your own destiny for the college football playoff. Maybe, let's talk about that. I don't know you control your own destiny. You control your own destiny, obviously, for the Pac-12 title. But here's some of the things that I think need to happen. Here's your wish list if you're an Oregon Duck fan. The first thing you need, a one-loss Big Ten champ, meaning either Ohio State or Michigan has 2 losses. That's what you would like, because in that way, you avoid the Ohio State's undefeated, Michigan has 1 loss, they get in, or vice versa. You hear what I'm saying? So that would be ideal. Second thing you would like, a 2-loss Alabama. So how would that happen? Probably if the champion comes from the SEC East. So whether it's Georgia or Tennessee, you would like to have the winner of the SEC be from that side. So you avoid the, one loss Alabama is the conference champion, and you get a 1-loss Georgia in, or you get a 1-loss Tennessee in, whatever it ends up being. You don't want to have that happen because that takes another spot. Then you get to these 2 that I think are probably the most important. A 1-loss Clemson probably gets left out, or any other ACC champ. That opens up a spot. You also would like a 2-loss Big 12 champ. In both those scenarios, that leaves the door open for an Oregon team to potentially find their way in, especially if Utah keeps winning. You root for Utah until November 19th. You hope they are as highly ranked as possible. So if and when you win that game, look at the resume, folks. Hey, 2 top 10 wins for Oregon. You're going to leave them out as a 1-loss Pac-12 champ and all these other things fall your way. It's not impossible, okay? It's not impossible. But at the end of the day, whether it's 2022 making the playoff or whether it's beyond, Dan Lanning is building a program that is going to be physical, that is going to be able to go anywhere in the country, and quite frankly, is going to have some staying power. That's how we feel about the Ducks. This has been The Hard Count. I'm JD Piquel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Nick Brake does the real heavy lifting, but you can help drive this whole operation by subscribing to the channel. We are live on Tuesdays and we are live on Thursdays, so come get in the chat, get active. We'll have a whole lot of fun. So until then, we're going to keep the party rolling, and we will see y'all next time. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.